is Evan Worrell. He is a delegate from the 23rd. That's Cabell County. Evan, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, appreciate you having me on. How's everyone this morning?
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for asking. Did you watch the game yesterday, sir?
I definitely did. I was excited and thankful for the Eagles to win, and the halftime score kind of feel like that's where it was. 24-0 was a shock, I think, to the whole world. But it was an exciting game still, nonetheless. I think the Eagles did a good job, and I'm not a big Chiefs fan, so
a lot of people aren't anymore because of their dominance. I've got nothing against the Chiefs of being great. I mean, that should be the American dream, right? To be great at what you do. But I did find in my gut that I was rooting for Philadelphia. And I got to tell you something. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Rooting for Philadelphia for anything is not in my soul.
Right. Well, I'll say, you just said the American dream. Let's give a big shout out to Rocket Mortgage. You talked about commercials. Did that huge Country Roads commercial, which is just, if you guys saw it, it's pretty amazing yesterday. So that was exciting.
That was really very ingenious. I'm surprised nobody had thought of that before.
Yeah, and then, we didn't spend a single dollar from West Virginia, tourism on that ad. So.
Yeah, I was expecting to see Governor Morrissey and Chelsea Ruby on the paid for by West Virginia there somewhere along the way. And I thought they got that for free? That's amazing.
Yeah, Evan, explain that one to me. I saw it and I could not really make the connection. Why did Rocket Mortgage do a West Virginia type commercial?
Well, I think it was more about the American dream of owning a home, and I don't know why they chose that song, but that's what I got from the commercial was owning a home, and that's the real American dream. But I don't know why they chose the song.
I'll tell you. I can tell you why. There are. I don't know how much college football you have a chance to watch, right, or anything else. But that song is known by everybody, and it's sung by everybody regardless of the school. Because, every game you go to, it's short attention span theater. They have to fill every dead second of silence with music. And that's a song everybody loves, regardless of what school you went to or where you were born or, where you lived. So they made the comment. There was a hook line that went along with that. Rocket Mortgage, the American Dream, and I think there was something that said with Uniting America. Okay. And that's the one thing, that's the one song pretty much everybody knows, right?
But not only in America, wherever you go in the world, that song is
there. Yeah, it's like Sweet Caroline from Neil Diamond. It's just
that's right. Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you real quick, we just had a daughter of a missionary come over to the States from India, and she knew this song. She was taught Country Roads, and it was the only American song she knew of from India. So worldwide, as you just said, I've got an actual evidence of it.
Hey, at $8 million per 30-second ad. That's a lot of free advertising.
And I don't know if it was part of the commercial or if it just worked out that way, but it looked like they came out of the ad to the stadium singing the song.
Oh, yeah. It was choreographed.
Yeah,
timed
that was great.
That was all part of the live ad. That's just really smart advertising there.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll get a bill from Rocket Mortgage for that.
Yeah, you guys can share some of the cost with us if you want.
Right.
Evan, let's talk a few things as you are the chair of the Health and Human Resources Committee. Can you please, because I still get confused on this a year and plus later, when you divided the Department of Health and Human Resources or Services, the three different arms of it are titled what?
You have the Department of Health, and then you have the Department of Human Services, and the Department of Healthcare Facilities.
I see.
Yeah.
Now,
so we split those up for, human services and health were just, monsters and massive, and they deserve to be separated. We just found ourselves, it's tough to really kind of get down into the weeds and into the details, with such a large department.
So you are the chair of Health and Human Resources. Does that mean that your chairmanship gives you oversight of, or at least legislative oversight of all three of those wings?
It does, and actually we've even created a new process this year, and so we have three subcommittees. One is the Subcommittee of Public Health, which deals with health, the Subcommittee of Human Services, and then the Subcommittee on Healthcare Regulation. So we're trying to kind of overlay our subcommittees over the administration on purpose so that we can work with them and collaborate with them to, enact good policies for West Virginia. So
we had Delegate Scott Heckert on the program last week talking about certificate of need. And Scott is in favor of preserving certificate of need, at least in some form, at least with a carve-out, if not in its entirety. Do you feel the opposite way in regards to certificate of need? And if so, will you and the Republicans be taking any legislative action regarding certificate of need?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the side and have been for a full repeal of certificate of need. I mean, when you look at where it came from in the middle 70s, there was Congress passed a law basically trying to control healthcare costs and duplication of services. And the good President Ronald Reagan in '86 in Congress there actually repealed that law and basically told the states, you're free to do it as you want. And, I think there's been about 20, maybe I might be exaggerating there, maybe 16 states that have repealed their CON laws since then. But, here we are 40 years later. West Virginia still has, con laws on the books. And it's more than just hospital services. As you all know, we have many other services that are caught under the certificate of need process. And, I just disagree. I've gone through it personally, and I just see that it's time to make a change. I think the status quo needs to go in the sense that we need to make multiple changes to try to improve health outcomes in West Virginia. And I'm not saying repealing CON does all that. I'm just saying that it's a tool in the tool belt, and that's my personal opinion. Of course, this isn't it's not an easy subject. It's not black or white. It's tough for every legislator when it comes down to this piece of legislation.
Your private job is in the healthcare industry, is it not, Evan?
I do, yeah. I operate a non-skilled in-home care company that provides personal care services throughout the state. So closest to you guys is Petersburg, which is super tiny. Petersburg's super tiny, but coincidentally, it's one of my largest branches. So, but yeah, so I've been through this process too. Actually just went in front of the Intermediate Court of Appeals last week for CONs that I submitted in June of 23. So here we are, February 25, and I just went in front of the Intermediate Court for about those certificate of need applications.
What was the CON process like for you to try to get into this industry? Was it helpful or was it hurtful?
Well, I would call it hurtful, but let me explain why real quick. The CON process it's the same for everybody. So whether you're trying to build a $50 million hospital or you're just trying to expand your, providing non-skilled in-home care, it's the same process, which is cumbersome. So I did 8 applications, which meant that I had to print at least, I think, 150 pages a piece, and then you have to deliver these in 3-ring binders to the healthcare authority, and then separate unbound applications to the insurance commission. And so that was interesting, printing all that paper there back in 2023. But it went through that process, had to hire a lawyer. I was quoted also to write my CON applications. I was quoted $80,000 to $160,000. I chose to forego that and wrote them myself. I did have to hire a lawyer to defend me, which I'm well over $100,000 him defending my CON applications now. We were approved in October of 23, so that process went through, but then I had a couple of senior centers that have since then appealed that decision, and we just, as I said, were heard in front of the Intermediate Court last week, February of 25. So that has been cumbersome for sure.
Was anybody already in the market you entered in that field specifically that would have prevented you from getting a franchise or operating a business?
Yeah, there were. So the senior centers, when it comes to personal care, the senior centers kind of had that locked down. What happened in 23, not to go down a deep rabbit hole, but Jim Justice signed a new need methodology for personal care. So it expanded and said that we needed more providers in the personal care space. So that's what kind of led to me and many other agencies submitting our CON applications, was due to that that need methodology being rewritten and expanded.
Bill?
The fact that you've had personal experience here and it's cost you a lot of money and a lot of time, is that influencing your desire to eliminate the CON?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually not. I've only been involved with in-home care about 2 years now. I was a healthcare consultant across the country before then, and then got into in-home care a couple of years, not even quite 2 years ago. And I've always advocated for the repeal of CON as I learned more about it. I've been elected, this is my 7th year, so all 6 years I've been advocating for the repeal of CON. I'll be honest though, if I have my CONs, okay, I've been approved and seeing members for that. So if it were for and it's not my personal business, I operate the business, I work for a company doing this, but it would be in our best interest to keep CON in all reality, since we have our CON approvals. But it's more about the policy. I just disagree with the policy and where we are today, and trying to make an appropriate change to try to expand healthcare services in our state.
Well, CON covers a broad spectrum. We tend to think of hospitals, but our local garbage pickup is under CON. I'm on the local hospice board, and we see that as well. Do you see any part of CON that should be retained, or is all of it should be repealed?
Yeah, Admiral, good point. And I want to clarify that we're talking healthcare CON. So I appreciate you bringing in the trash haulers, which is under a different section of code and goes under the PSC. When I talk CON, and thank you for clarifying, I'm specifically talking about healthcare CON, which is under a separate section, and the Healthcare Authority was created due to it. Well aware of your board membership on hospice, and as I spoke with my hospice director, who I have for 6 years, by the way, Melanie Hall down in my area. I've said I don't know about your hospice over there in Eastern Panhandle, but ours is doing the smart thing. And what I mean by that, I want to be really honest when I say this, they are vertically integrating their business in other lines, doing, personal care services, home care. They're doing adult daycare. They're doing a lot of great things. But what they're able to do is they're going out and they're competing against other companies in other lines of business, and those same companies can't turn right around and compete against them in hospice. And I don't like that, to be honest with you. I think that it's a protection for their core line of business while they're going out and doing these other lines. I think it's smart of them and strategic to vertically integrate their business and provide those wraparound services. But I disagree with the fact that they're competing in other markets, and then those same individuals or same agencies can't compete against them in hospice. So I'm not for keeping hospice and CON for part of that reason. Another is that I love our hospice. I think they do an amazing job. We actually have a hospice house in Cabell County. I think there's only 7 in the state. But at the same time, I believe in consumer choice, and I think somebody should be able to make the choice to go to a different hospice, and they shouldn't have to drive 2 hours away to go do that.
One of the arguments we hear local with hospice is that we're at the edge of the Washington, D.C. and Baltimore area, where you have a lot of for-profit hospices, and they're concerned they'll come in and cherry pick. And I know there's been exception to the term cherry pick, but cherry pick individuals such as long-term cancer, leaving other ailments that they would not pick up. Have you heard this argument or this discussion?
I have heard this argument, but when I go back and look at some of the different data points from the states that have repealed CON, we haven't. That data doesn't exist. I've actually challenged a few entities that I deal with because I've been doing this for 6 years, and said, "Hey, will you bring me the data? Can you show me where this has happened in other states?" And of course, they always come back and say, "Well, our state's different because we have such a high Medicaid population." And I said, "Well, just give me something to show that they cherry pick, anything." And unfortunately, no one's been able to bring that data to me. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I know that I've asked for it and I haven't seen it. But I do share that concern. But I am also a for-profit company, and I don't see a real distinction. I know that nonprofits are doing a lot of community service activities, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, those same nonprofits aren't paying taxes. And I'm not saying that's what it comes down to. But my point is there's a give and take for the nonprofit versus the for-profit status there.
Good morning, it's John Gilstrap. I am deeply a free market kind of guy, but when it comes to certificate of need in healthcare, when I imagine if the healthcare needs in the rural, remote parts of West Virginia, if somebody's going to open up a hospital or any kind of a healthcare facility, I would think they'd want a guarantee, they'd want the monopoly that is provided by a certificate of need, in order to just make the investment with some kind of a guaranteed payback. So in my heart, that's kind of my exception to the free market mentality. In order to attract someone to build a healthcare facility, don't we have to give them some kind of a certificate of need to give them that monopoly?
Yeah, I agree. I agree exactly what you're saying. One point I would argue or counter with is that we saw Montana repeal their CON, which is a very rural state, and they saw more community hospitals being built in their rural areas due to the repeal of certificate of need. And the reason for that is because while certificate of need existed, the current hospital systems that were there were always fighting against the smaller community hospitals. And even though they were, in these remote areas, but they were still fighting against them. And that's really what it comes down to. They just file as an affected party, and then they have the money to fight against it. It's happening in our state right now with W Health and Mon Health, for example. But we did see there's data, and I'm kind of a data guy. There is data out there that shows that there were more rural community health services available in Montana specifically when they repealed CON. So I'm not saying that's going to exactly happen in West Virginia. I do say that today, the biggest issue I have is that we are very low in health outcomes, high in healthcare costs, which is across the country. And I'm interested in making some meaningful positive changes to advance healthcare in our state.
So one day into the new session, what does your crystal ball say about the future of Certificate of Need?
This isn't an easy one. I'll just be real honest. I think it deserves discussion and debate. So, for example, tomorrow, which we have interim committee meetings today and tomorrow before session starts on Wednesday, I have a joint health committee, and myself and the Senate Health Chair, we're doing a CON 101. We're bringing in the Healthcare Authority, Hospital Association, people from different agencies to kind of just educate our members and inform them on what Certificate of Need is. So I don't really have a crystal ball. I just think it deserved discussion and debate. And at the end of the day, I'm one vote of 100 in the House. I think it deserves to be, to have that debate and see where the vote falls. And if it falls in a negative, that's not going to be, I'm not going to, shake my head and raise my fist at the sky. I think it just deserves that debate and discussion to understand where we want to go forward as a state.
Evan, a lot of the discussion, I think, has been from a subjective aspect. Has there been a thorough third-party analytical cost-benefit analysis for CON?
There's a couple agencies out there, and I think that, the Cardinal Institute for one, the NEE Center, which is a research institute under W's business school, and then there's Pacific Legal. Those three entities I'm well aware of that have done some heavy language in data and research and cost-benefit analysis, and they ultimately all come away with saying that we're paying for higher health care due to our Certificate of Need laws. Now, I want to be very clear. The Hospital Association has data that says the opposite. So, but they are a third party. It's not another, it's not a Valley Health trying to come in the Eastern Panhandle making that argument, right? They're actual third party entities.
Delegate Evan Worrell, Republican out of the Cabell County area, District 23, our guest here on the program. Just a couple of minutes left. You mentioned that the CON repeal you're talking about is specific to the healthcare industry. Are you aware of any attempts in any of the other industries to repeal CON in this upcoming term?
No, not at all. Actually, I have not heard that in my entire 6 years prior that we've ever tried to change Certificate of Need in any other option outside of healthcare. Like I said, because I think the entity is to remove the Healthcare Authority from that, and where the other, like trash haulers, for example, and I only know about them, are covered under the PSC. And we actually have a delegate that I've served with that is a trash hauler up in that area in Grant County, and he's kind of schooled me on what that Certificate of Need process and how much he's been through for that. But there's been no one's advocating to remove that CON.
I'm puzzled as to why not just repeal the entire thing, Evan. If you're going to repeal one part of it, why not the whole envelope?
Yeah. So it's all depending on the section of code, and I'll say that I'm more engaged on the healthcare side of this, and it's under a certain section of code that the other, like trash haulers, Certificate of Need process is under a completely separate section. They, like I said, report up under the PSC. It's completely separate from what we've ever dealt with. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you guys asked this question, because just about last week I realized, I keep saying Certificate of Need. All of us keep saying Certificate of Need, and I think we've expanded that. People think we're talking about other entities, whereas it is strictly on the healthcare side of what we're talking about. And for the reason of that is that we want to make sure that, it's my opinion, that's all it is, that we will have improved health outcomes and have more healthcare access in our rural communities if we were to repeal healthcare CON. Now, I know that others don't share that same, sentiment. It's just my opinion.
We only have 1 minute left.
Yeah. Evan, does hospice fall in the healthcare code that you're referring to for hospitals?
It does. Yes, it does. Hospice does. So does personal care services, home health, IDD, things that I would consider were never part of the original plan for Certificate of Need. But yes, it does fall under that, and that is something being discussed. And we'll make sure that hospice has a chance to be in front of our committee to explain, their unique circumstances as well. My most important thing I want to do is inform and educate the members of our committee so they can make an informed decision on all policy.
Evan, thanks so much for your time this morning. Who wins the Super Bowl next year? Now's your chance to get ahead of the pack.
So you guys can laugh at me. We'll leave this. I'll say Carolina Panthers. Can't even say with a straight face, but they are my team. So
you're right. We can laugh at you.
Okay. Thank you, Evan. Good discussion.
Thank you all.